Hi, my friend. We are going old school today with the old school block of the month. I'm Pat Sloan, and this is my daily video. This week, or this month rather, Jane Davidson is our designer, and she was doing some fussy cutting. And I don't have the right kind of fabric. Like I showed you her block the other day. It is fabulous. Really crazy tulip pink fabric. Mine, I don't have anything that's significant in this fabric line. So I went with this floral. And I was trying to get the stems to come all to the middle. So that was what I was working on. One of them, I didn't get it quite good enough. That one, this one here. So I was a little off. So I think what happened is when I was shifting and rotating, I sort of lost track of the fact that I was fussy cutting and I was just trimming it to size. And that is something you want to be aware of when you're doing this, particularly if you might have something like this floral that is not quite as significant. The images are, not as strong for fussy cutting. But Jane has a great tutorial. When you go to her website, you can see it. It's fabulous. And if you want to learn more about fussy cutting, this is my favorite book whatsoever by Nicole Ramirez and Elizabeth Wu. They did a fabulous job because it gives you not only how to go about fussy cutting and looking at images, but they also have tons of patterns. Let's see, I want to do they're going to give you a whole lot of great patterns to practice with. They actually do it as a sampler. But the techniques for being sure that you've got the images where it needs to be, they cover all that. Jane has a great tutorial today too. Now I also decided that maybe I wanted to cover up that intersection since it didn't come out quite like I hoped. So I cut some circles and I could put a circle on there. That's something I could do. It would not be horrible to put a circle on there. I cut a dark one, which is the same fabric as the corner. And then I cut a light one, which is the yellow, which I like because you can actually see the yellow. So I might do that because that way it's not distracting. We don't have that one that just is off sides. So there you go. I also have I did one block with the trimmings from this. I created one of the churn dash blocks, and here are my others that I'm doing from the old school fabrics. The other thing that I ended up doing while I was working on this is rearranging my fabric bin for here, because these are all from a layer cake. Like here's the same fabric in the pink. Now I could make a second one. Like when you're doing a layer cake, you don't have that much fabric, and when you're fussy cutting this, and I'm cutting that square, it ended up taking a huge chunk of this. And if you look at my blog, and I'll show you how I sort of positioned over, and then it was hard to get them all out of just 3 pieces. And I'm not going to buy any more fabric, so I don't really want to I don't really want to use the pink again, so it's just going to stay. But what I did is this was a mess. I was trying to layer the whole piece in here, and every time I would get stuff out, it was just super messy. This did not work, so I folded everything in half from the layer cakes, and then I put the bigger chunks of fabric underneath. I got all this peach, and then I got some of this to do a border, and then some of this extra too, because I don't know why. But all the little pieces I put in a plastic bag in here so that it's nice and tidy. And on top of that, I can just position the blocks. And then all of this stays super nice in the container, and we don't have to hunt for it. It's not a mess. It's really nice. I love these containers. And I had a question from, who was it? Jay. She asked on the YouTube here in the comments. She wanted to know about pre-washing fabric, particularly pre-cuts. And there's a whole school of thought on the washing or not. Okay, if you want to be 100% positive that none of your fabric is going to bleed, you wash it in advance. If many of the quilt shop fabrics do not run, so a lot of people over time have just not washed fabric anymore, pre-washed it, because they generally don't run. So they don't want to take the time to wash them and dry them and iron them, to fold them and put them away. Particularly sometimes we don't use our fabric for a while, do we? It could be years before you use that fabric, and there you spent all that time doing all that washing and drying and ironing. So that's one school. Another group of people wash everything, but when it comes to pre-cuts, they are already a certain size. And like, well, here, I can't reach that over there, like the layer cake. Let me just grab the square. So this is a 10-inch square. The problem is you can't really put pieces of fabric like this into the wash. They will distort and become somewhat of a mess. There are people who will take it and rinse them lightly, lay them all out flat, and dry them. You know, lay them out to air dry, because you don't want to put them in a dryer. I mean, they'll probably shrink a little bit too. They have that possibility. So often, most of us don't wash pre-cuts. You know, the 2.5-inch strips, they would be like a big, very difficult to pre-wash. So we just hope for the best. We use color catchers when we're finished and washing the final quilt. You throw a color catcher in, or 2 or 3. If if there is some bleeding onto your fabrics, a lot of people will use like Dawn soap, and you just don't want to dry it. So check for that bleeding before you dry it, because then you're like heat setting all that again. But you can always ask in my group quilt along with Pat Sloan. There's tons of people who have tried tons of things to get some bleeding out. That does happen. Fabrics like reds, dark greens, dark navies, those tend to be the culprits. The darker fabrics, and particularly red. red, everything red, like I know. But that's just the way it is with fabric. So it's best to think through what you're going to do and make a decision on it for yourself, and whether you want to pre-wash or not. Okay, another fun thing is my friend Angela Huffman of Quilted Joy. She designed a quilt with my Morrison Park fabric, and so let me put a picture up. It is on the cover of For the Love of Quilting with Fonz and Porter. Angela is also one of the co-hosts for their PBS show, and so if you watch those PBS shows, you know Angela. I've known her for years. She's done a few pieces with my fabric lines over the years, and she's lovely. Also, she has a fabulous store. It's a long arm and quilt shop. She does a lot of long arm classes. That's her expertise. She sells the machines. She does training. She does, she and her staff, and they also, I think, rent them. So if you are anywhere near her place, but even if you want tips, you should sign up for her newsletter, because she has lots of great tips on there. It's really fun. She does a fabulous job with everything that she touches, and so I'm thrilled that she used my fabric Morrison Park to do that quilt. Speaking of blocks, yeah, I know I wasn't, but the home is, ta-da! This is today's, and did I tell you about this hummingbird? I guess they're hummingbirds. Do you think they're hummingbirds? They look like it, right? With the long nose. This was a fabric like on a sale table somewhere when I was teaching on the road. It seems to be I may have been in Texas teaching. But this was on the sale table, and I bought all that was there. So it was like 2 yards or something. And I'm starting to have very little left. So it's like special to be able to use it. And I got the whole 3 rows done. So we're on the 16th today, but there's from the 1st to the 15th. So we've got all of those sewn up. I'm excited. I love the teal and black. I'm just really, really happy with how that's popping in those cornerstones. I know some of you are not sewing the cornerstones, and that's totally fine. I am using those cutaways. Remember I talked about keeping all these the other day and doing a quilt? Well, I got them out to see how many I actually have, and I have about 150, which isn't very much. 100 would do a 10 by 10 block, so I can't even do 2 10 by 10 blocks yet. It's going to take me forever. And then I started thinking, well, how many do I need to get a wall hanging or a decent sized quilt? So I'm probably going to need about 3,000 of these things. So I'm keeping them up here, up on those red boxes. I'm just putting them in there, and one day I will get them out and trim them and press them open, and I'll do that sort of when I need to take a mental break. I find that very relaxing to just do the trimming and pressing, and not really with any purpose, you know, no deadline. It's just sort of at the end of the day I can do that. I don't need much energy to do that. Oh, and I've got my units all cut for the rest of the month, and they're in the box so that I can get one or two out and sort of sew them while I'm sewing other things, so I can keep ahead of the game so that I don't run behind. I don't want to run behind. You know, I mentioned the other day I was reading the book I've Decided to Live to Be 120. It's a neat book. It's a book about basically how to stay mentally and physically healthy for a very long life. That is what it's about. And the section I'm reading right now he starts out with the healthy part. And one of the things is to get up and move like every hour. And I thought, I really need to do that. And I've known to do that for a long time, because when I got this pedometer watch the other day, it has a feature on there to bing you every hour so that you get up and move around. And so I set it. And sometimes I don't do it. It bings and I don't do it. I don't get up. So I'm reading this book and thinking, you know what? I need to make that part of what I do. Get up, because all of us sit a lot. Some of you don't, and that's fabulous. Mr. Greg does not sit a lot. He will sit for periods of time, but he's, you know, likes to move around. He gets up, goes and checks this, does that, you know, so he doesn't really sit as much as I do. I'll be sitting at my computer and I could probably sit there for 2 hours and not even know it and not move. So telling me to get up and move every hour, and then me getting up and listening to it, is critical. So I'm going to do it. So if anybody else is in that same boat, if you feel like you want to get up and move every hour, I highly recommend you do something, set a timer, get something like this that can bing you and let you know. All right, my friend. we have to live a long life, because we have a lot of quilts to make. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So this has been great. I love seeing your blocks. I'd love more of you to be making the old school block of the month with us. Join in. They're easy. They've not been hard, and they've been fun, and you meet new people. So there you go. So I love you. Mwah. See you online.